So the song that I was just listening to was Heaven or Las Vegas by the Cocteau Twins, which is definitely one of those songs that is just, I'm like 16 in somebody's car, like listening to it really, really loud, and it just brings me back to my teen years. I think they're actually released it in the 80s, and I don't know, it was probably mid to late 80s when I first heard them. And I grew up in the greater Binghamton area, as Andy likes to say, because I never really lived in Binghamton proper, but I lived like in the outskirts. I lived in Owego, Endicott, and Vestal. My parents did live in Binghamton at one point, but I didn't live there. But I had a lot of friends from there. But we go schools till 7th grade, and then we moved to Endicott, and I went there from 7th grade to 10th grade, and then we moved to Vestal, and so I went to Vestal from 10th grade, and then I graduated from Vestal. But I started meeting like the people that I would become friends with, when I was I had friends before that, but the group, there was a big group of people, like the scene or whatever, you want to call it, in Binghamton. And it was, I was in UE, in Endicott schools, and I met Dan Kasvinsky, and because we both wrote for the Tiger Beat newspaper. I was a big joiner when I first went to high school. I was like in the marching band, and I wrote for the school newspaper, and I was in the yearbook committee, and I did it all, like whatever there was school wise, I was into it at first. and then I met him, and I just thought he was really interesting, and he started like telling me about, I think he was a senior when I met him, and telling me about Charles Bukowski and the Red Hot Chili Peppers and things I just didn't really know about. And then he was also friends with our friend Peanut, or Dave Brown. Everybody just calls him Peanut. And I remember like becoming friends with Peanut, and he was friends with these other people who like would come to the school sometimes, and I was just like, I believe it was Sidney Prince and somebody else, and I could be wrong, but I think that's who it was, like in retrospect. But these kids came in totally goth with like the huge black teased hair and white makeup on their faces and red lipstick, and like I was just like, what is this? It was crazy, and I loved it, and I just thought it was super interesting. And also Justin Rosetta went to UE, and he had a big mohawk, and I was very attracted to like this stuff. And then when I moved to Vestal, I saw Raya Pixton, and she was like, I just wanted to like be friends with her. I was just like, just thought she was so interesting. Like, she looked interesting. She was always reading a book and didn't really want to talk to me, and was like totally puzzled as to why I would be trying to like make conversation with her. But I kept it up because I was just like absolutely drawn to her. And then I met Monica Van Wert, and somehow somebody invited me to a party, and like, I don't know, I thought somebody was waving at me. somebody invited me to a party, and I can't remember. I think it might have been at Jeff Yauss's house or Ian Wells. I'm not really sure, but it was the very first time I met like my group of nerd friends who played a lot of like long board games and listened to Bauhaus extremely loud, and a lot of their parents were professors, and I just thought they were like the coolest people ever. They were definitely like, they were so smart. They were smarter than me. I mean, they were just, in fact, I think I was definitely like the dumb one of the group, but I was like happy they would like hang out with me. And I think I did something kind of funny like at the first, like an early party, and people just like laughed and thought I was like, yeah, I don't know, I just felt like I was really almost immediately part of the group, and I would be for years. I mean, these would become my friends, and you know, and that's like this, and they were from different places. Like there were some people from Vestal, there were some people from Morgan. Van Whaley lived in Fort Crane. Chad lived in Binghamton. I mean, people lived all in different places around the Southern Tier or the Binghamton area, and you know, we would get together frequently. And I was probably 14, maybe, something like that, somewhere around there. And it was a great time of my life. It was a great time. It was a great time of like exploration, and I just can't believe how lucky I was to have found these friends. And they were, you know, they led to other people. You know, there were like levels of not everybody knew everybody, but I knew them, and then there were like also the punks who that I got to be friends with, a bunch of them. In fact, like whenever I hear the Cocktail Twins, it makes me think of Eddie Gallagher, who was friends with everybody. They're like crossover people that were like friends with different groups of people, but all of these different people in the aggregate like were my world. And I read a lot at that time. I was reading like voraciously. I was like having new ideas. I was getting to meet people that were gay, thinking about things like socialism, and having long conversations for hours talking about, you know, philosophical ideas about life, and just such a like, you know, I mean, your teen years are kind of sucky usually, and there was the normal teenage drama and suckiness, and some of the stuff that I thought was so like highbrow turned out like, you know, I'd find like little journals later that I wrote, and I'm like, oh, this is like so embarrassing. But you know, and I was boy crazy. I was just always in love with a new boy, and not always boys, but it was, you know, it was like a time of exploration and fun. But the thing that was the really remarkable is that I would become such good friends with these people, and then I kind of like lost everybody, you know, when I went off into the Navy. And you know, back in the day, this is like freaking pre-internet, really. So it was just, everybody was gone. And then in 2008, when Facebook came out, and I'm like, I got onto Facebook, and everybody was there. Everybody. And I was just like, I couldn't believe everybody was there. I looked, and like, not only that were they like amazing people when I was a teenager, but many of my friends had gone on to become really wonderful people. Like, they were successful, and they had nice families, and they were doing incredible things. like incredible things, and it wasn't like some teenage fantasy. I mean, they were like the smartest people I've ever met in my life. And and I knew that they were as special as I thought they were, not just in my own memory and my own teen estimation, but they were, just really incredible people. And so that was one period of my life that is very meaningful to me, and those people are still, they just meant like the world to me, and have contributed a lot to like who I am as a person and the things I'm interested in. And it took me really, we didn't start out really from the same place. I didn't know it at the time, but I had a lot more trouble than a lot of them. Not necessarily. I mean, it was a mixed bag, but I could not have asked for a better place to be from than the greater Binghamton area. I love my friends. I really did.